Yeah, and this is going to be really fun to be able to see. It really, I mean, it can come down to who has really the better draws because both players, both competitors here can have great responses into each other's matchups. Falling Star is going to be a really big asset for Time to be able to use here because that is going to be the one thing that Defy will not be able to capitalize on this turn. And right now, we're already seeing a great start with that Ravenbloom student as well.
Yeah, very ideal standard start from Kaiser. Now let's see if we get a follow-up from the Yi. Pretty good start as well. You can't ask for much more than a channel 1 draw one as early as turn 1. So ideal start for Master Yi as well. So both these guys getting quite fortunate early on. Gonna go ahead and conquer the first point of the quarterfinals with that Ravenbloom on the Void Gate. So Kaiser, as she usually tends to do, off to the races. Gonna be summoning that Kaiser champion as well, throwing it back over to Master Yi. Let's see what he has for his second turn now.
Well, and especially with what is coming out so far, you're seeing a little bit of ramp, no necessary, maybe double, double hourglass here. You're not seeing any 2-drops, so I think you're correct on that prediction where you're saying that Aurora could be the option here, but still, with the speed that Kaisa can move with, that can be very difficult for Yi to come back in if he happens to miss a little bit once Aurora's might come out.
Yeah, let's see, because with that turn 1 find your center, he's poised to get that off as early as next turn. No, he's still missing 1 because he goes to 8 runes the following turn. So yeah, he's still 1 turn away, because else that would have been really, really advantageous to get that out nice and early. So giving Kaiser a bit of breathing room. And I was setting up the battlefield. Did he throw it back over to Kaiser yet, or still doing? I think he's still on his play, right?
I think so. Yes, correct.
Okay. And wow, 2 Zonias, so he's quite prepared, but it also tells me his hand wasn't that great if you're forced to get 2 Sonias on the board before you even have any units. So it's a little bit of a feels bad situation, but might as well get value where you can, maximize your runes while you can, and no unit silent. Kaiser's definitely gonna like this so far.
Yeah, well, and here's the big thing too, though. The scariest part about 2 hourglasses that you could have is if a Deadbloom Predator is hit. That is one of the scariest cards for Yi to be able to utilize, because not only is it an 8 might unit at the beginning, but with Yi's ability when defending, it will go up to 10, and that is devastating for anyone to take down, but especially Kaisa, because even Cleave with Darius would only go ahead and tie break that.
Yeah. So we'll see how he approaches this situation. It looks like there's a little audio issue, which is what the players are discussing. But Ravenbloom decides to retreat for now, going back to base, keeping it nice and safe. Got that hold point, so Kaiser does go up to 2. Now she's having the option sending the Kaiser over to the Sigil of the Storm, so gets that nice draw 1 on top of gaining a point. And this is the one that you have to recycle a rune, so it really hinders Kaiser a little bit. She likes to keep her runes up and ready to get those combat tricks online, but it's just 1 rune at the end of the day. As long as you play around it and strategize for it, it's not going to be the biggest impact. Of course, little things do add up the more you get on and progress through the game, so we'll keep a lookout for that. But so far, not looking too bad for this Kaiser player. Now 5 runes to work with. We saw something like a Kaiser accelerated. Does she want to just get, I mean, you're not going to gain a point, so I doubt it's going to be accelerated. Probably just going to try to spam out, get some units, develop that board state, and look pretty poised to get some more points the next turn on the follow-up.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing, especially seeing that the Yi is only at 8, or going to be at 8 runes at the start of this turn. So there's going to be no Auroras. You have 1 more turn to be able to prepare and utilize. If worse came to worse and you might not be having the Aurora in hand, you still could potentially play a Deadbloom into base to begin to accelerate some things out. But otherwise, yeah, you're just going to be building up your backfield to prepare for the inevitable. And that is when Yi will start to take control of this game. And that's the scary part, because we've seen games where the opponent has been at 7 points, and then the Yi will just work their way back up and take the game.
Right, we have seen that before, but Darius, a notorious card for Kaiser players, gets played directly onto the battlefield just in case, but it's always a little dicey, right? Because as you said, I mean, you're going up to 8 runes as the Master Yi player, so you could hard cast a Deadbloom Predator. There's going to be 8 to 9. So I guess you're not too worried about it if you're the Kaiser. So I guess this makes sense. That 9 is a good breakpoint versus the 8 because you're on defense. So Master Yi is not going to be triggering off his Legend ability. And he doesn't have Dazzling Aurora to get that off for the next turn. So a Confront, trying to speed things up, give his units accelerate. But he only has 6 runes now. I wonder what he's going to deploy with that.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because at least, I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily know what you would maybe if... No, I don't know actually what you... Maybe you're just going for the card draw at that point. Yeah, you're just trying to dig a little deeper, getting that out, and hopefully next turn getting some great board going for you because, yeah, this is going to be really slowing you down as we move up to 4 points for the Kai'Sa.
That's right, and if you're the Kaiser player, you're loving this. Master Yi has yet to play a unit this entire game 1. Ravenbloom getting pushed up to Void Gate, getting another Conquer, going up to 5 points. Slowly but surely, Kaiser inching her way there. Just 3 more points remaining to close this game out. Unfortunately, though, or perhaps fortunately, depending on which side you stand, Dazzling Aurora most likely online, and that's usually where the turning point begins. So I'm wondering if there is a Dazzling, it could be quite impactful, but at this stage of the game, Kaiser already occurring 5 total points, conquering both battlefields. Something like a Deadbloom Predator could only take care of the Void Gate because you have 9 might on the sigil. So I don't think Kaiser's in a bad position here. I think someone in chat was saying it's favoring 95 Yi. Kaiser's looking pretty good so far.
Well, and that's the thing because when you do happen to start taking control of the game and getting things moving, it can be very favorable towards the Yi, but they're hinging so much on being able to hit the Auroras. And yeah, I responded to that comment in chat during that because I was like, yes, but there is still a lot to be seen here because if Auroras is still hit, it can still end up missing with what it's able to dig through in this deck. And so we'll see, but 2 Dariuses on the side of Kai'Sa, man, that is setting up for some major success here.
Yeah, you love to see. I know the last finals we had something like a triple Darius, but the Dazzling Aurora was on hand for the Master Yi, so gets it deployed off, and it looks like he hits a Mountain Drake, so a nice, super strong vanilla unit. 10 might, can never go wrong with that unit. But it's not accelerated or doesn't get played directly, so this is another potential 2 points most likely going in Kaiser's direction. So 6 for the hold, 7 for the sigil conquer. Things are looking rather good for Kaiser. Oh, Silent, do you think there's a way this Master Yi player can slow Kaiser down, or is it a little too late?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily, yeah, because I mean, well, yeah, we're looking at 6 points right now. We're going to be up to 7. That is a lot of hopeful thinking for the Yi player here because yes, the 2 hourglasses is going to be very helpful, but you need to be able to get on board. I mean, all in all, you really could just send over the Kai'Sa, have one floating maybe if you wanted to, or maybe go for like a Stupefy or something to get the card draw so you don't lose out on the rune that you have to recycle when conquering. But then you just sit around and say, okay, I have what, 7 cards in hand right now? All right, cool. What do you have for me, Yi?
Yeah, what do you have indeed? We'll get our answer to that rather shortly. So gonna be tapping. Yeah, I think he's getting 1 step ahead of himself. He's thinking about conquering and was gonna float an energy to recycle the rune that you have to recycle. And wow, he's throwing everything in the kitchen sink onto the sigil. So 2 Darius and a Kai'Sa, fortifying it with what is that 14 total might, going up to 7 now. But 10, that Mountain Drake is looking scary. I don't want to send everything into a battlefield unless you're feeling confident. Thinking about it, there's a lot of cards in Kai'Sa's hand. 2, 4, 6, 8 total cards that Kai'Sa has available to her. That's at least, what can that be? 2 Void Seekers with all that rune available. Is that enough? No, that only goes to 8, so you're still trading all your units.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, too, is the double Darius in the battlefield is such a great play here because all you have to do is be able to play 2 spells in this case, and suddenly the Dariuses also get ramped up to 14 on top of that. And so it's like, cool, I'm going to be potentially, smoke screening you,
Oh, yeah.
Something, whatever else it might be in this case to really hurt you. But then I'm also going to be adding 4 might for you to have to get over as well.
Yeah, that is understated. Darius doesn't just work on offense, it works anytime you play a secondary card. So really well said. Something to keep in mind for this Master Yi player. Let's see what he has. It looks like he has a potentially an accelerated tasty, but no, it's a Dead Bloom coming straight for the Raven Bloom on Voice Gate. He should be able to conquer it because it is a deflect creature. You don't want to use your spells on that creature just yet, especially when you're at 7 and you're looking to just defend the sigil. That's all you need. Can you defend it with cards like you said, Smokescreen? I feel like a double Smokescreen should be GG for this Kaiser.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and you're still seeing 5 cards in hand for Dizzee here as the Yi player, and so there is a chance that we might be saving it for the Defies here, potentially on any responses, but he's still tapping 1 to go ahead and do a charm in this case. Ooh. To get one of the Darius's over. But this is also dangerous because, I mean, at this point, you could potentially start to set up a trade with a Dead Bloom Predator as well and forcing it back to base.
So he does decide to choose the charm onto the Darius, bring it over to the Dead Bloom. So Dead Bloom's going to go up to 10. But keep in mind, he is an attacker now, so something like a Cleave will bring Darius potentially up to an even 10 as well if you play 2 cards. But what are the targets for those 2 cards is the question, because you can Cleave. Oh, that's a Cleave up there. He's kind of hiding it above the screen. So that is 1 Cleave. Most likely going to be choosing on the available target of the attacker, but it gets defied. So no Cleave no longer. Does he at least have another one perhaps?
Yes, he does. And I mean, this is great because now the Yi is completely tapped out. You can play your game and have the reassurances that nothing is going to get defied here. So if we do happen to go now for the smoke screen, yep, there we go. And that is going to target. You're sure going to have to recycle for the deflect, sure. But man, this is going to be probably the gameplay right here that locks down that game 1 win.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you get the conquer if you could. But you're at 7, so I don't think it works that way because you had to conquer both, I guess, on your opposing turn. Quite the intricacies here, but you're not going to win, but you at least get the draw, I believe, because you're at 7. So I think that is how that would work out.
Yeah, I think you are right about that, but if not, that would be almost a pretty funny way to lose game 1 is you charm them over, then, oh, wait, I lost the game. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up playing out. I'm sure they're discussing that right now. But we at least have the Dead Bloom Predator back into base, but still both battlefields are occupied. So this game is pretty much done either way at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the only unit being ready being the Mountain Drake, as you said, both battlefields are currently occupied in the position of Kaiser's favor, so Mountain Drake can conquer one of these, but won't be enough. You can't duplicate yourself and go both ways. You have to decide on one, so either or, pick your poison. I think Kaiser's gonna run away with this and lock down game number 1 for our quarterfinals. So I think they're just talking about that draw play we were mentioning, but this should be all she wrote. And we might be moving on to our game 2 very shortly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just being extra cautious. You've already made it to top cut after playing all day in a tournament. You want to make sure that you dot all your I's, cross all your T's to make sure that, yes, I have lost this game, or yes, I have won this game. Let's go on to the next one, because every single point, every single win now counts.
Yeah, and it looks like he's just looking from the dazzling, but wait a second. He's still... No, this is a concession. He's just looking the cards off the top of the head. So GG Kaiser will be going up 1 game.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And it's really interesting, especially because these are usually the two... I've play tested this a lot as a Kaiser player going against Yi Auroras here. And it's normally this is the game 1 battlefield matchup as well. So it's really interesting to see what's going on. But with the Yi going first, he was able to find a little bit of ramp, and we'll see if that's going to be enough to go ahead and continue to get things moving for this Yi player. Everything is on the line for him right now. There is no other opportunity if you lose these games.
Yeah, and to your point, everything is on the line because right now, with our first ever Cash Cup, we are only paying out to the top 4 players. I really wish, potentially in the future with some sponsors, we could do a whole top 8 payout. But for the first one ever, we are doing a top 4. So everything is on the line. Whoever doesn't move forward falls just one round short from getting in the money. So this is a high stakes situation. One of these players could perhaps take it all the way to the grand finals and potentially all the way home to 50% of the grand prize pool. So a lot on the line. Yordle getting a first point on Kaiser. So okay, I like Master Yi's position so far with the turn 1 mobilize, find your center, and getting the gear of foresight or the mask of foresight online. That's like a double Master Yi. I don't think I've seen this before. That's 2 Master Yi's ability essentially.
Yeah, and that's going to be so scary. So if you can manage to hit the Auroras with that as well and start to take some battlefields, it can be a brick wall. And especially because I don't know if we're really going for gear destruction here. There's not necessarily much Kai'Sa can utilize with that at all. Yeah, can't utilize really anything with that. So any gear that is out onto the board, Kai'Sa just has to deal with. But man, this can be scary if next turn Auroras happens to be coming out.
Yeah, that indeed. He's at 8 runes, so we know it's not possible just yet, but could do things like accelerated tasty faithful. But going for, I thought it was immobilized, but it will be a confront, giving accelerate or readying every unit that gets played out this very turn. So what does he play out? It's going to be a catalyst at Aeon. So if he didn't have enough runes for a dazzling Aurora next turn, he definitely does now. Going to be fully maxed out on runes unless he recycles right now, which I don't think is looking like he will. This might be a pass, but a sabotage. I'm wondering if he's running that in the main deck or if he just sided that in, because with so many spells from Kai'Sa, sabotage tends to hit good cards. I mean, you could, I'm thinking of another card, but this is not, oh no, it is non-unit card. Never mind.
Yeah, well, and even still, though, Sabotage gives you so much information. You're able to notate everything per the rules of Riftbound as well. And so Sabotage is just such a good card for really almost any matchup because everything utilizes spells in this case. But on Kai'Sa especially, man, this can be a huge window into what is to come. And, I mean, that is a scary hand and only able to pick either a retreat or the Stupefy here.
That's right, and it looks like he's deciding between the two. I'm thinking the bigger threat might be... Okay, decides that the bigger threat will be the retreat to say things like a Watcher, because he had Watcher in hand. You play Watcher one time, retreat again, you get to do it all over again. So that can be very problematic for Master Yi, especially considering he has such high might units. That Watcher really brings them down to size, making it a lot easier to deal with for Kai'Sa. So I can respect that, getting recycled back to the rune, back to the bottom of the deck. But man, now that he passes on, oh no, it is a temporary unit, so you don't get a point for the token, but you will get a point for the Yordle. So up to 3 the Kai'Sa goes, and you still have the Sprite Mother online, so that's most likely heading over to the Climb's direction, netting her up to 4, so it usually would be halfway point, but a little bit shy of 1 point because of the Climb ability.
Yeah, and that's going to be the hardest part is, I mean, I'm going to say that this next turn for the Yi player is going to be big. You have to get something out, whether it's a Dead Bloom, whether it's an Aurora. Otherwise, yeah, you're just going to be finding yourself in over your head at this point again. Yes, Kai'Sa hasn't been able to move as quickly as it's been able to in the past, but it still can go ahead and continue to quickly respond time and time again with every battlefield. And so it's going to be interesting to see what this turn is going to be for the Yi player.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet it's smelling like a potential Dazzling Aurora. Tap in 6, 7, 8, 9. That is indeed a Dazzling Aurora. Cycle 2 for its power cause. Doesn't most likely have anything else unless he wants to play something like a Mobilize, as we saw turn 1. But what would he hit off the top? But instead going to be a Zhonya's just in case it dies. But with those high powered units or the high mighted units, I don't think they're going to be going down to a Yordle or a Sprite Mother. And he's going to hit the White Flame Protector, a total 8 might. Unfortunately, can't play it directly onto the board. So 4 to 5 to 6 is where the Kai'Sa is going on their next turn. That's kind of close. I mean, he's not in a terrible position, but not in the best position either.
Well, I mean, again, the Hourglass is going to be such a good help here. But again, the Kaisa player can sit back and be like, okay, this is what I'm presented with. 2 cards in hand for the Yi player, Hourglass, Auroras, and even the Mask as well. Okay, what can I do about that? And right now, you're seeing the backfield now getting created. So, hey, you're not going to be able to play a Deadbloom Predator out to base if you happen to see it. Cool. I'm going to see what I can do now this next turn with everything out. And I have a Thousand Tail Watcher in hand.
That's right, and that information is public due to the sabotage, of course. But I think right now, if there's ever a turn to turn the corner, it has to be literally on this very turn. You have the White Flame Protector ready now, so able to get a point finally online for Master Yi. And of course, the Dazzling Aurora. Is this a secondary Dazzling? It is.
Oh,
whoa,
gosh.
Silent. This might be exactly what Master Yi needed to get back in this game.
Well, I think really any deck, if you have 2 Dazzling Auroras, will get you back into the game. But still, I mean, this is just so ideal. Being able to get 2 units that are going to be at least 6 might or above, depending on if he's running Tasty Feyfolk in this case. And that is just going to make such a wide board. I mean, Kaisa has a really wide board, but that is with 2 to 4 might units. That is going to be scary considering. And another Hourglass coming out. And what might be added with double Auroras now?
Let's see. So hit the 3rd Aurora. So a Mountain Drake will be target number 1. Plays it directly onto Reaver's Row. Really buffing up the total might. A total of 18. I mean, there's plenty of units on Kaisa's board, but 18 is such an overwhelming amount of might to get over. So let's see what the targets for this for the Dazzling Aurora number 2 will be. We haven't seen any Dead Blooms yet. Of course, you can't play it directly on an empty battlefield, so plenty disciplines. There's the final Zonias. Oh, this is the thing about Aurora decks. You just keep going and going until units hit. I've said it before, I feel like a slight balance. Look at the top 5 maybe. Like the fact that you can go through an entire 10 cards and the 11th one be the card you could bring out. It's a little bit crazy if I do say so myself.
No, it is. And I mean, that's really kind of the surprising thing that we're seeing with, a lot of people having their critiques with set 1. They look at Aurora, they look at Deadbloom Predator, they look at Thousand Tail, Falling Star. I mean, we could name all these cards that are just super overpowered. And they're like, what are these cards doing in a set 1? But that's why I love this game, because this does not feel like a set 1 card game currently. And we get to play with all of these shenanigans and to be able to utilize some really cool top plays here as Kaisa goes against Yi, and it is a show to see. Whereas if they played it a little safer, it would be probably much more of a lackluster game.
You know, actually, the way you said that, I couldn't agree more. This is a big show saying we want you guys to play some broken things, but we want to give broken powers to pretty much everything, which makes things fair. So Kaisa does a little bit of crazy shenanigans, as you said, with things like Fallen Star. Yi and Orange and Body decks can do their own with Auroras. So I could see that. I think more sets as they come out, it starts to mitigate things. Things don't feel as broken with more cards in the card pool. So I think with more time, we will see things kind of feel a bit more balanced, of course. But Kaisa Survivor going into Aspirant Climb up to 7 points. Normally that would be checkmate right there, but 2 more points left. And 18 total might needed to get over Reaver's Row. Man, how is Kaisa possibly gonna do this? That's a whole lot of potential smoke screen and spells to get that done.
Well, and that's the hard part, because you still have the insurance of the Hourglasses. So if you do happen to take out the 2 units in Reaver's Row, okay, cool, I'm just going to go back to base. That's the best case scenario, is you would hope to be able to take them out with spells that you wouldn't have to attack in. Because if you do, well, sorry, but Reaver's Row is just going to give them the opportunity to back out as well. And that's going to be tough, because the last thing you need is another Hourglass in case something else gets destroyed.
Yeah, from this position, those 2 Hourglasses are looking pretty good for Master Yi. Able to save a 10 might Mountain Drake and the 8 might White Flame, and then able to get them readied on the follow-up turn, going straight towards the Kaisa. So things are looking good. Even if Kaisa gets over this Reaver Row, I mean, Darius has 7, Sprite Mother goes to 10, Raven Bloom, there's still 2 runes, so perhaps 13, 14 there. 18 from the Noxious Hopeful, and then 22 with the Yordles plus so she has the might. The might is there. The question is, how much resources or how many units do you want to truly commit to that Reaver's Row? Because there's a fine line between overextending and then strategically positioning your units, and decides to forego sending any units. That's actually pretty interesting there.
Well, and it's almost like a wait and see, but the wait and see is literally a tsunami coming towards you with everything that can be utilized. 11 runes as the Yi player, 2 cards in hand. That's at least a little silver lining here, but still 2 hourglasses, 2 auroras, man. And a Dead Plume Predator eyeing that Kai'Sa. That is going to be very scary. And again, this is what we're seeing. It's 2-7 right now. Well, here we go. The auroras are out, everything is set up, and the Yi player could very well just move in, but still, I think what we're going to see is Thousand Tail Watcher potentially coming in and going for the overwhelm, but with 2 auroras, they can just reinforce the battlefields and see what happens.
Yeah, Master Yi will be able to do that. Doesn't have too many cards in hands. Of course, going to get to draw 1 from the confront, so now 2, but still doesn't have very much to work with. But what he does have to work with is that dig into your deck potential with those 2 auroras. As you said, Charm gonna make matters worse, most likely gonna be targeting that Darius onto that 18 total might, and it doesn't get the +2 because Yi reads it has to be alone, so I wouldn't blame him if he goes into Debloom, but does decide to go into the Reaver's Row. You could, as we saw, play Cleave, but it won't be nearly enough to take down that 18 total might, as we keep saying. But it looks like perhaps the final card being the notorious Debloom Predator. But thinking about it, do you want to spread your resources evenly? Give about 18 might on one battlefield, 16 might on the other one? Or do you want to go all in? Because from this position, the game plan for Kai'Sa was, I'm going to conquer both battlefields on my next turn. That's why I withheld my units, kept them all in base. I have Thousand Tail Watcher, as we saw, as early as turn 2. So that's the game plan. How are you going to pivot and position yourself to not let Kai'Sa's game plan go off as easily as she's making it seem?
Well, and the difficult part is, one thing that I was thinking about is maybe I just go ahead and throw all of my units into one battlefield and then try to hold for a turn. Even then, though, the 2 hourglasses are just going to be so difficult because they'll just go back to base and then be able to attack in on the following turn. And so I don't know. This is such a uphill battle now for the Kai'Sa. 2 auroras is going to be so difficult for anyone to defeat, but more so that, Kai'Sa doesn't even have necessarily a good side to take care of those auroras. 2 units are just going to come out every single time.
Yeah, and I don't think this game is going to be lasting too much longer, unless, of course, we have to do the math, and these players are definitely going to have to do the math because there's so much might protecting both of these battlefields, and you have to conquer both. You have to get to 9 from this position at 7, but keep in mind, guys, Master Yi, not only is he completely tapped out, he has no card economy. Every single card in his hand, nowhere to be seen, no defies, no disciplines, even if he had the ability to do so. So all Kai'Sa has to do is play her game. Does she have a Thousand Tail Watcher with things like Smokescreen to back it up? How many runes is that? 2, 4, 6, 8 for a Watcher accelerated, 3 to work with. Is there a window? Because keep in mind, Ravenbloom gets +1 for every spell, potentially a double Stupefy. Man, this is a lot of maps to do for these players. I do not envy this position.
No, not at all, and especially when you've already been playing for multiple hours trying to make it to this top cut, and here we go, setting up this game, and now it's like, hey, let's do some math. And so we're at least seeing the Thousand Tail Watcher. That's going to be a good news on getting -3 to a lot of things, but still, this is going to be tough, because even if you go into the Deadbloom Predator side, that's not going to necessarily be feeling too great. Again, we have Mask of Foresight that's going to be able to add some units as well.
No, I think what I was reading it because it's when it's alone, so it actually doesn't trigger this time.
Yeah. So at least you don't have that to worry about, but still, it's like the 2 hourglasses. I keep saying that, but it's like, you're going to be at least putting back, potentially 18 might back into base with the hourglasses being on the board.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's all or nothing here. Does Kai'Sa have it or does she not? Because if she does not, is definitely heavily favoring Master Yi with so many units, and not just any units. These are big boys: White Flame, Mountain Drake, Deadbloom, 2 of each. You have twins for every card, and these guys are equaling a whopping amount of might. So let's see, does Kai'Sa have it? Everything getting brought down a teeny bit, but even so, 10 total might on the climb. What is that? 17, 14, what is 24 total might on the Reaver's Row. So collectively, you have to have 34 total might just to trade evenly on both of these. I don't think he has it, right? Because 7... Yeah, I think this is a little too tall of a task to ask for from the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and he's double checking all the abilities just in case, looking at Mask, looking at Yi, doing some calculations, and looks like is going to start committing in slowly but surely here, moving in. Yeah, looks like those 3 units to try to take care of Deadblooms here. And luckily, the tank with the Yordle, though, is going to be very helpful on at least saving potentially the Thousand Tail, if I'm doing my math correctly.
I believe so, because 10 has to go into the tanks first, so 4 leaving behind 6. So 6 isn't quite enough to damage the Watcher all the way. But to your point, as you kept mentioning over and over, the Zonia Blades do get triggered, brings back those Deadbloom Predators. So on the very next turn, total of 16 might going into Kai'Sa's direction. Nothing to be too sad about if you're Master Yi, because now look at the board state in the basic Kai'Sa. Collectively, what is that? 7, maybe 10, 13 if you only have 1 spell to work with these Raven Blooms. That's not going to be enough. We established before 24 total is what has to be taken over on the Reaver's Row. And I mean, let's try to think about it. 1 smoke screen brings things down by 4. That brings it to 20. Increases the Raven Blooms by 1 each, so 3, 3, 6. So total 13. Yeah, I'm just I'm not seeing a sequence of cards that really takes Kai'Sa there, and Kai'Sa agrees, passes it back over to Master Yi. This is really tough for Kai'Sa.
Well, and the hard part is, it's like, do you have a retreat in hand potentially to save the Thousand Tail Watcher? That might be the best case scenario on trying to get you there again. But still, you've drawn the card for the Yi player. You have double Auroras. The big thing, though, is that the Auroras could very well run out here in this case. And you might be having no units to be found. The deck is already extremely thin. A lot of the units have already been dealt with. And so what's going to be the answer? It looks like Yi's going to be coming out, trying to get some final reinforcements as we move into this mid to late game between these 2 Titans clashing.
Let's see if she did indeed have the retreat. Try to protect the Thousand Tails, because that could be a breath of fresh air for the Kai'Sa. Can you replay the Watcher? I say that, but thinking about it more and more, I still don't think it's going to be enough, considering the fact that there's still 2 more Dazzling Aurora procs at the end of this turn. If we thought the last turn had an immense amount of might to overcome, this next turn is going to even have double the trouble, with Yi having Accelerator being ready. The Deadblooms didn't go anywhere because of the Zonias, and then 2 Aurora triggers, and there's even less units on Kai'Sa's board now. I think even though Master Yi was a little far away, it's looking like he's taking this away. It's like the big snowball. Started a little small, but right now it's looking pretty gigantic. Rolling down and looking like he's going to roll into a game 2 victory in our best of 3 series.
Well, and here's the thing too, and the thing to keep in mind is that the big reason why not only did you get the double Auroras, but because of also Aspirant's Climb being the battlefield of choice here, you gave yourself such a great advantage here. Now that you might not necessarily have that going into game 3, is Dizzee going to have enough to be able to secure this round? And it's going to be tough to say, and it's going to be hinging on what is my starting hand.
Yeah, we will see. I'm wondering, because there is a card in Fury. I believe it costs 5 in a power. Is it called Thermo Being Silent? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Destroy
that's correct. And I
all
believe
gears.
it's 2 power. Yep, and it's destroy all gears, but it's not cited in a lot. I have only seen it cited in 1 or 2 decks in the meta, at least, and it's just a lot of people are saying it's just not necessarily very well utilized. And so, well, in this case, though, it looks like it'd be pretty well utilized.
Yeah, it looks like it would really do some work, but keep in mind there was a sabotage, so if sabotage would have got off while you had the thermal beam in hand, things wouldn't have felt too good either way. I mean, Kaiser, looking at all her options, but looking at the current board state, we did the math earlier. The Watcher didn't get retreated. Of course, she could have another Watcher, but it's just not looking too good. I wouldn't blame Kaiser to close things out and just concede here to try to get a game 3, because these games are going long. We have about 15 minutes left in the round. Of course, we do have those 5 standard turns with a max of a 10-minute time limit, so they could squeeze out a game 3. But if I'm Kaiser in this position, even though I'm at 8, as much as I don't want to concede, I'm a player that wants to play towards all his outs, but sometimes you got to be a teeny bit realistic and try to get another game, because keep in mind on game 3 you're going to be on the play, and we saw how well that worked for him on game 1. So I'm just gonna, if I was him, okay, he did have a secondary Watcher. Let's see if he shuts me up here.
I don't necessarily think he will in this case, but I do like that he's not giving up. He's playing it out, seeing if the math can math correctly in his favor, minusing 3 from everything. That is a lot of clicking right there to be able to get things done, but we'll see what might be coming of this as well. Again, though, you deal with this board state, that's it. So if we are able to go ahead and maybe charge into Aspirant's Climb and potentially take it, maybe we could potentially hold that and nothing can then move over, especially with only 1 card in hand. So I do really like how Time is holding on here, trying to see if he still can get the win, because there still is that chance.
You know, you make a very good point. 2 Dead Blooms are already on the board. I think he already scooped another one from the no. Did one die already? He wouldn't have been able to put one at the bottom because it would have triggered. But either way, the point being, there's probably not another Dead Bloom Predator, and we haven't seen any Tasty Fate folks, so there shouldn't be any accelerated units. So if Kaiser's at least able to lock down 1 battlefield this next turn, you know, I think I was just saying, what are all your outs? I think that is literally one of the few, if only, outs available to her, and I respect this play, going all in into Aspirant Climb. It should be enough, but the question is, how many units will be surviving? I don't think very much.
Well, but at the same time, all you need is 1. That's going to be the biggest thing. If I can go ahead and clear all of this out and still manage to hold, I might be able to win this. If not, hey, Dizzee has definitely earned it. We'll go to game 3 and see what happens next.
Yeah, so really thinking deeply and found a line. He found a potentially winning line. So let's see if it does end up playing out the way he envisions it. Thinking about what are the trades going to be. So a total of, what is that, 13, and okay, everything gets taken down, and leaving behind a Sprite Mother and a Raven Bloom. And oh, this could be good. Of course, the only out for Yi now being is that Dead Bloom Predator off the top. I'm trying to remember hard. Is there a did we already see 3 Dead Blooms? Because I could be confusing it with our game 1.
I'm pretty sure we've seen all 3 in this case, because I think so in this case. And so we'll see what is going to be happening. There is nothing left on the board, but it looks like he is tapping and untapping. That's a good scare for anyone. If you just want to randomly tap 8 runes at the end, that is going to be something great to really scare your opponent. But still, it looks like he's going to be going for some good card draw, trying to get some answers. Going to be able to draw 2 off of that. And then with that, it is finding the Dead Bloom.
The 1 card to close it out, to really spell doom on Kaiser, is exactly what he came up with off the top. To be fair, he did draw 2 more, a total 3 cards that turn, 1 for the draw on the play, and then 2 from the meditation. So he had some good favorable odds, but to be the 1 Dead Bloom Predator he needed doesn't feel too good if you're Kaiser, and I think that might have wrapped things up. You're bringing it up to 7 for Master Yi. But look at Kai's board. There's nothing. There's nothing. You can accelerate units, but you send it back. Master Yi's at 7, as we said. So 8 from the hold, 9 from the Dead Bloom hold. I think that's going to be GG, going in the way of Master Yi. And man, these guys might have to play very, very quickly for this game 3 situation.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing, is there was a lot of time, not necessarily a lot of time in game 1, but game 2 was a grind and a half. And I mean, you got to see just how hard, I mean, the Kai'Sa was able to fight, getting to 8 points here. Still going to be digging a little deeper with the Stupefy, minusing 1 from the Dead Bloom. It's like, you know, I need to take this battlefield. I need to get answers. I will happily recycle that rune in this case and try to get some answers here. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this game 3 ends up going, especially with time on the clock.
Yeah, so you could get something off like a Watcher, but with that Mountain Drake on the back line for Master Yi, that's going to be more than enough with the 10 total might to take down the Watcher on the follow-up turn. So I think these players are talking about it. It looks like they're wrapping up, scooping up the cards and moving on into a game 3. So here we go, guys. Quarterfinals, very last game.
And we are about to start game number 3.
That is right. So most likely than not, Kai'Sa is indeed on the play. Does she have that Raven or Poro? I don't think we've seen Poro, so at least she does have that Raven Bloom. Accidentally had a little extra might buff on there, but corrects it right away. Starts. Oh, and Kai'Sa should have 1 extra rune. I hope she realized that from the Obelisk of Power.
Yeah, and that's the scary part, because yeah, it looks like they're catching and discussing that right now. That could have potentially changed turn number 1 as well, because if you happen to maybe have a Yordle in hand, I would rather be playing that potentially and drawing a card off of that and saving maybe Raven Bloom for another day. But I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. And it's like, yes, this is definitely a very difficult moment, especially if it does end up not being in the window and the judge says, sorry, you actually ended up missing that rune. Luckily, if people do happen to get mad, start calling out saying he's a rule shark, that's the furthest thing that ended up happening. They called the judge. They did the right thing here. But still, that is going to be a big difference maker, a discipline for the card draw. And it looks like, yes, the rune is missed.
Let's keep a close eye if a single rune will end up changing the battle later on as this game continues. So we'll keep in mind a play that he wishes he had potentially like 8 total runes for a Watcher, and he only has 7.
Well,
we'll see if that ends up biting him a little bit later on, but does get the conquer point on both of these battlefields. It looks like getting all the way up to 2 nice and early, exactly what Kai'Sa wants to do. One of the wait a second, why didn't he get the token? I think he is talking about the token.
I think he played it there and everything and passed. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think this is already making a really big impact on the game right now, because yes, you are able to play the Sprite Mother, really great card. But if you would have gotten that extra rune from the beginning, you could have played an accelerated Kai'Sa and drawn an additional card and gained an additional point if there was nothing to be played at the upkeep for the Yi player. And so it's like, oh man, you could be missing out on card draw and an additional point just because of the battlefield. Really interesting to be able to see all of this, but especially as we get things set up. As a side note, it looks like Batsu has defeated Tog and will be moving into the semifinals. And not only that, we also had Sold Out with Annie taking down Willow with Master Yi, and is also moving into the lower bracket of the semifinals. So both those competitors, Sold Out and Batsu, are in the prize pool and fighting to make it into the finals.
That is incredible. Because keep in mind, guys, Batsu is on Darius. Tog was on Kai'Sa, which many people will consider the #1 deck. Darius, of course, such a credible and such a good standard leader, but he doesn't get the limelight that I feel sometimes he does deserve. But Batsu bringing it to the Cash Cup and having something to say about it. So I'm itching to watch some Darius gameplay. Hopefully we could catch him for our semifinals match. But first things first, let's try to wrap up our quarterfinals, because technically for time, it's about time right now. Of course, let's give these players about a 5-minute time extension, and then we'll go into those 5 turns. So we'll keep an eye on the clock, because I think that was about a short little, hopefully it was 5 minutes, should be sufficient enough, ideally.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, but still, we're not necessarily seeing a whole lot happening here. Just a lot of digging from Dizzee, and he is still going to be 2 turns away from getting the Auroras out, even if he has it. That's going to be scary because that's going to be even more points to be had, especially as we start moving into 4 points as the Sprite Mother ends up taking the battlefield. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how everything is going to be going down and what Kai'Sa can now do to continue to set up, especially with the 4 cards in hand.
Yeah, so I was thinking about playing a Sentry, but decides to go with the Kai'Sa Survivor instead. Gonna be playing 4 runes for that, passing it back over to Dizzee. Does Dizzee have at least something that can get accelerated like a Tasty Faithbook? We haven't seen it all series long, but instead it's going to be Find Your Center, setting up for that potential Dazzling Aurora turn the following turn. It looks like there's a slight little hiccup. If you see, things are popping up weirdly. We'll reset the lobby after this, of course, but goes for a Catalyst, ramping up and up, pretty much maxing out on the total runes, and now playing a Sabotage. Let's look at the hand and let's see what the game plan in Kai'Sa's hand is looking like. Okay.
Yeah. Not bad options. And I mean, yes, of course, you're maybe wanting to watch out for the -3 damage, but still 2 Stupefies in hand are still going to be able to draw you cards off of that as well. And sometimes Stupefy, being able to draw 1 can really make an impact on you far more than, maybe what a Void Seeker dealing 4 and drawing 1 as well. But that's the power of Kai'Sa. Everything draws you a card.
Yeah, speaking of drawing, it looks like, or no, she did pull it back before, so goes in for the Conquer on the Obelisk, going up to 6, so she's getting awfully close, and there is no Aspirant Climb in this game, so now just 2 points away. That's exactly where Kai'Sa wants to be. You kind of go ahead, develop your board state, build up a good amount of units on your base, and then get that Watcher online the very next turn. And I think that's exactly what Kai'Sa has in mind. Has plenty of units to maximize the Watcher ability by sending things in. Does Yi, I mean, the best you have is a Dazzling or a Dead Bloom from this position, I believe. Or what else?
Yeah, that's really
thinking?
the only 2 options. Yeah, maybe playing Yi, but again, playing Yi straight out doesn't necessarily feel as good as a Dead Bloom. But looks like we will be going with the Yi option. It is only at 3 because you haven't set that up, but it is at 6. That's just a typo here because of where it's at. So able to take that battlefield, but still there is a lot to be had here, and there's going to be the Hourglass. But that's the thing. Your opponent's at 6 points. If you go back to base, there's not going to be necessarily a whole lot to be had there, but he's hoping maybe we can just trade straight up and then see what ends up happening.
Yeah, and trying to think about it, with just 2 runes at the ready for Master Yi, the best you have is a Discipline that we have seen in the deck. I don't believe we've seen an On Guard, and there's not enough runes for something like a Primal Strength, so only having to play around Discipline doesn't feel that bad. You have to consider the fact that Defy could be looming in the hand. So Stupefy number 1 does get brought down onto the Master Yi, lowering that total might down to 5, drawing 1 card to see more available options, and even more importantly, increasing the total might of each Ravenbloom by 1. So if you have a Watcher, or even a Darius looks like he's gonna get there, you have plenty of units to work with. So if you just send the Yordle or the Sentry to Targon's Peak, and then everything into Obelisk, I think that should be GG for the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and I mean, great playing right here for Time, being able to utilize this. And again, this is why I think the Yi Auroras ended up kind of falling a little bit to the wayside, because it almost has too much hoping to go its way. And on top of that, the side decks have adjusted accordingly here. And so everything is now going into this case. That is going to be now going back up to 9 if I'm doing the math correct, but still that's not going to matter here. It looks like we very well double Aurora in the hand, but too little too late, and a great win from Closing Time.